ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरू श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तः स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम पदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्वशे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नीलाचल निवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्यां जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं श्रीपरमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. Okay, so from today we will be starting our Bhagavad Gita verse by verse as well as overview. So the first unit is chapters 1 to 6. So Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 units: chapters 1 to 6, then 7 to 12, and 13 to 18. So today we are going to start the first unit, that is chapters 1 to 6. So before starting Bhagavad Gita, we should know what are the glories of Bhagavad Gita. So this will motivate us to understand Bhagavad Gita a little more properly. So we have taken this glories of Bhagavad Gita from Gita Mahatmya, which is given in the Padma Puran. So in the Padma Puran, there is a nice story of a poor Brahmana. So once there was a poor Brahmana, and he used to live along with his wife. And this Brahmana was a very devoted devotee, and he used to read Bhagavad Gita every day. So once, while reading Bhagavad Gita, he came across this verse. This is given in the 9th chapter, 22nd verse. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupashate tesham nityabhyuktanam yoga shema vahamyaham. So here Krishna tells that whatever my devotee lacks, I personally supply to my devotee. Yoga shema vahamyaham. So this is 9th chapter, 22nd verse of Bhagavad Gita. That yoga shema vahamyam, Krishna tells that whatever my devotee lacks, I will personally supply to him. So when this poor Brahmana, he was reading this Bhagavad Gita verse, so he thought, how is it possible that Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? How can he personally supply someone? So he thought that maybe Krishna may arrange with the help of some devotee. Krishna may arrange through his agents, or Krishna may inspire that someone can come and give a donation maybe to his devotee. But how? Krishna is telling that he personally takes care, he personally supplies whatever the devotee needs. He personally supplies. So he was thinking this can't be true. He is the Supreme Lord. Why does he need to personally come and supply a devotee? So therefore, what he did, he took a red ink and he crossed out these words, Yoga Shema Vahamayam, thinking that this must be a misprint. So after doing this, then he went for his bath and then he went for begging, as was his routine every day. This Brahmana used to go begging different places, to different houses. And that day, nobody gave him anything. Everybody had an excuse to give him. Everybody was telling that somebody has died at our home, so we cannot give you so many things today. And different people had different excuses. So roaming whole day throughout the city, he came back empty-handed to his house, and he was thinking that maybe today we have to fast. Meanwhile, what happened? While this Brahmana was out begging, so there was a very beautiful young child. He came to the house, and when the wife of this Brahmana, the Brahmani, when she opened the door, she was very surprised to see that a beautiful child at his home, and he was carrying on his back a full bag of grains, sugar, and whatever groceries that are needed. So, this wife of the Brahmana, she was very surprised to see such a beautiful child and carrying such a heavy load. So she asked him, "Who are you, and why are you bringing such a heavy load to my house? And uh, how come I never saw you before in the city?" So then this boy told that Brahmani that actually I am the disciple of your husband. So the wife was surprised. She said that my husband never had any disciples. So how come you are telling that you are his disciple? I know my husband doesn't have any disciples. So, but this boy insisted, no, I am the disciple of your husband. So Brahmani said, okay, maybe. And what is there in that bag? So the boy said, this bag is full of groceries. And your husband, he told me that I should bring these groceries to you. And if I do not bring, then he will become very upset. And because I am a small boy and this bag is very heavy, so I was bringing it very slowly. So he beat me with a stick on my back. And this boy, he showed that Brahmani, the wife of this Brahmana, the marks on his back, which were because of the Brahmanas hitting him with a stick. So Brahmani was very upset, and she was thinking, oh my god, my husband did this to a nice, beautiful boy like you. First of all, he forced you to bring such a heavy load of bag and threatened you that if you do not bring it, then he will punish you. And when you were bringing it anyhow, then because the bag is so heavy, you were bringing it so slowly, he beat you with a stick, and he beat you so hard that there are marks on your back. So then she was very upset, and she was thinking that when my husband comes today, then I will surely ask, what is this going on? So then she asked this boy that please come inside, please sit down, let me cook something nice for you, please take prasad, and then you go. So meanwhile, this Brahmana, he came back from his begging business. He begged throughout the city and empty-handed. Nobody gave anything, and he came back just empty-handed, and he was thinking that today, me and my wife, they have to fast. So as soon as the Brahmana entered the house, the Brahmani immediately began chastising the Brahmana. How can you do such a thing to a small boy? So then the Brahmana was puzzled. He was thinking that, yeah, my wife, she never talked to me like this before, any time in my life. So now why today she is talking like that? So then, seeing the Brahmana puzzled, the Brahmani explained the whole story. And then this Brahmana was telling that, but I never asked, you already know I don't have any disciples, and I never asked any boy to bring these groceries home. So she said, no, the boy is still there in the home. He's there in that room. So she pointed towards the room where the Brahmana was sitting and reading the Bhagavad Gita. So Brahmana was very curious. He wanted to see that boy. So he went inside that room, and there was no boy inside that room. So Brahmani also started searching throughout the house, but the boy was nowhere to be seen. But then this Brahmana looked into his copy of Bhagavad Gita, and he saw that those words, Yog Shema Vahamyam, which he had crossed with a red ink, they were gone, and it was like a fresh print. Again, Yoga Shema Vahamyam was written as it is. The red ink was already gone. So then this Brahmana realized that, oh my god, this boy was nobody else but Krishna only. He himself was Krishna only, who came in the form of this young boy. And then he realized that the red ink with which I crossed these words, Yogashem Vahamyaham, actually I marked it on the body of Krishna, because Bhagavad Gita is not different from Krishna himself. That's what we know from the Shastras, that Bhagavad Gita is not different from Krishna. So when I crossed these words, Yogshem Vahamyaham, I actually crossed on the body of Krishna, and therefore this boy was bleeding. He had these marks on his back. So then this Brahmana, he became very upset, and he started crying that, oh my God, I never trusted the words of my Lord. He said that I personally carry out whatever my devotee lacks. And therefore, this boy was telling that your husband, he told that if we do not personally bring these groceries to you, he will beat us. So that's what this child said. And then he was appreciating the good fortune of his wife, that you are so fortunate that you got to see Krishna directly, but I am so unfortunate that I did not believe in the words of Krishna, what he writes in Bhagavad Gita, that he personally carries out whatever his devotees lack. And in order to give me trust, in order to build my trust on his words, he had to do such a thing. So what we learn from this story is that Bhagavad Gita is not different from Krishna. So when we read Bhagavad Gita, we should know that we have Krishna in our hands, and therefore many people worship Bhagavad Gita. Although that is also not a very good practice, that you just keep Bhagavad Gita at your home wrapped in a red cloth and just worship it and do not read it. We should read also, but many people worship it also, and that's also good practice. We can worship Bhagavad Gita, we can offer arti to Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is Krishna himself. So this is the story which is there in Padma Puran, by which we can understand how sacred is this book Bhagavad Gita. This book Bhagavad Gita is Krishna himself. So moving ahead, setting the scene. So here we see Krishna's expertise in delivering Bhagavad Gita. You see, at what moment Krishna delivered this Bhagavad Gita, it's a very exciting point in the history of Mahabharata. The long awaited war is just about to begin, and both sides, the conch shells are already blown, and the Kshatriyas, they had assembled to now fight. The best warriors, the best Kshatriyas, the best fighters of the world, they have assembled in Kurukshetra. It's like the biggest Olympic which is going to happen. And already the conch shells are blown. And the soldiers, they are like, they were Kshatriyas, like they used to love to fight. So they are just full of anticipation and excitement. The animals are full of excitement. So for them, it's not fearful situation. The real Kshatriyas means they are not fearful in the battlefield. They are very excited. And like that, so best powerful Kshatriyas, so much excitement, long awaited battle, conch shells are already blown, and the opening arrows are now about to be shot. And at that point, now Krishna says, hold on. Now you listen to the philosophy. So just the climax, when it is about to reach the long awaited battle, will the virtuous Pandavas win, or will the evil Kauravas win? The whole world is divided into two sides, and the biggest battle is going to happen. So that point of time, Krishna is delivering this Bhagavad Gita. So exactly, so build up the story at the point of climax, so that everybody is fully focused and nobody can miss out even a single word. And that time you deliver the message, so that nobody misses it out. So this is the expertise of Krishna in delivering Bhagavad Gita. So if we know the whole history of Mahabharata, we will be able to relate with it. So this is the setting the scene. Now moving ahead, we'll be starting with the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. This is the title of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and this is also called Arjun Vishad Yoga. Why it is called Vishad Yoga? Because here the Arjun cries. He is in Vishad. He looks at his relatives who are on the other side of the battlefield, and he sees that these are the people with whom I must contend, and therefore he starts crying. So this chapter is also called Arjun Vishad Yog. So again, before starting chapter 1, we should know about the glories of chapter 1. So we came to know about the glories of Bhagavad Gita. Now we should also know the glories of chapter 1. So again, we will refer back to Padma Puran, where in Gita Mahatmya, the glories of chapter 1 is given. And this is also explained in the form of a story of Susharma. So this Lord Shiva was explaining to Goddess Parvati about the glories of chapter 1. So then Lord Shiva narrated this story to Goddess Parvati. So how the story goes that Susharma, he was born in a Brahmana family, but he was still very mischievous, very sinful. So one time when he was in a garden, a snake bit him, and the Susharma, he died. So after his death, he went to hellish planets, and there a lot of punishment was given to him because he was very, very sinful. So after suffering for many years in the hellish planets, then this Susharma, again he was born on the earth planet in the body of a bull. So this bull was employed by a very selfish person, very crooked person. So he used to engage the bull in a lot of hard work and hardly feed the bull anything. So one time what happened? The bull was carrying a very heavy load, and it was just somehow perspiring and somehow moving ahead, and the load was so heavy that the bull fell down on the street and it just died. So much torture the bull had to undergo because of the previous sinful activities which Susharma did. So when the bull died on the street, many people assembled around that bull, who was Susharma only in the body of a bull. So everybody was feeling so sad for the bull. So everybody started giving the credits of their own pious activities to the bull. So everybody remembered that I did this pious activity or that pious activity, and they started giving those credits to the bull. So there was one prostitute. She was also there in that crowd. So the prostitute, she was trying to remember what pious activities did I do. So then she remembered some pious activity, and then she offered that credit to this bull. So after the death, again the bull went to Yamraj, and the Yamraj informed that because of the pious credits which this prostitute donated to you, you have been liberated from all your sins. You are purified, and again now you can go back to earthly planet and take your birth in the family of a Brahman. So again this Susharma, he came back to earthly planet. Now he was completely purified because he received the credits, the donation of pious credits which this prostitute gave. So he was born in the family of the Brahmanas. So but he had remembrance of all his previous lives, what had happened. So he was very grateful to that prostitute for giving him the pious credits, because of which he was liberated, he was purified from his sinful acts. So he started searching for that prostitute to thank her and ask her that what pious activity did you do, that just by giving some of the credit of it, I got fully liberated from the sins, the heavy sins which I committed in my previous lives. So then he found that prostitute and he asked her this question, that what pious activity did you do? So then the prostitute replied that I have this parrot, and this parrot every day he recites some shlokas, and I don't know what these shlokas are, but I just hear it, I like it, and somehow by hearing these shlokas which this parrot recites, I have become very purified in my heart. So then Susharma, who was now a Brahmana, he asked this parrot, what shlokas do you recite? So then this parrot started telling its own story. So the parrot said, in my previous life, I was also a Brahmana, but I was also very sinful because I was very proud of my learning and knowledge. So I started criticizing people, offending people, and because of which I fell again into the hellish planets, and then I took birth in the body of a parrot. But because I had such a sinful background, my father parrot and mother parrot, they left me, they died at an early age, and I was an orphan. So one time I was lying on hot sand without any protection, and some sadhus, some sages, they were crossing by. So they saw me and they took pity on me, and they took me along with them, and then they put me inside a cage. So they gave me some prasad, some water to eat and drink. So while I was there in the cage, I saw that the children of this Brahmana, they were learning the recitation of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So hearing these people, these children recite, because they were reciting it again and again, I could memorize the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And I liked those verses, so I started reciting those verses every day. Then some of the thieves, they stole me from these Brahmanas, and those thieves, they sold me to this prostitute. So just by reciting those verses of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, my heart has been purified, and by hearing, the prostitute's heart has been purified, and just by giving some of the credit of hearing the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita to you, you have been purified. So see, what is the glory of just the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Only the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is so powerful. What to tell of the remaining? And the first chapter is so powerful that just by reciting Bhagavad Gita, the parrot became purified, the prostitute became purified, and giving some of the credit of that recitation, that hearing which prostitute did to, to Susharma, the Susharma also became purified. So then all of them appreciated the glories of Bhagavad Gita. Susharma came back home, and all three of them, they individually started reciting the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that is the power of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So what lesson do we learn from here? That just reciting the first chapter only can completely purify the heart. So this is the power of even the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? So now we will move into the discussion of the verses of Bhagavad Gita. So this is the chapter summary, which you see on your screen. As the opposing armies stand poised for battle, Arjun, the mighty warrior, sees his intimate relatives, teachers, and friends in both armies ready to fight and sacrifice their lives. Overcome by grief and pity, Arjun fails in strength. His mind becomes bewildered, and he gives up his determination to fight. This is just the summary of the first chapter. So now we will be going verse by verse. Before that, this is the overview, how we have divided the first chapter. There are 46 verses in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and the first part is introduction. So here, how the preparations for the war is going on. This is from verse number 1 to 13. And then there are signs of victory for the Pandavas. This is from verse number 14 to 20. And then Krishna as Bhakt Vatsal, how Krishna's qualities act as a Bhakt Vatsal, merciful nature towards devotees, how this comes out. This is the third section of first chapter. This is from verse number 21 to 27. And then the fourth section is Arjuna's doubts. After seeing his relatives and friends on the battlefield, Arjuna started doubting whether or not should I continue this battle. So this is from verse number 28 to 46. So we will be starting with the first part, the first section, the preparations for the war. So here the introduction, preparations for the war. Here the summary of the section is what? Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjay about the events that took place at Kurukshetra, and then Sanjay he starts describing how Duryodhan, he uses his diplomacy. He was a very expert diplomat. How using his diplomacy he solves the problem of encouraging Dronacharya without insulting Bhishma and others. And then Bhishma rallies his soldiers with the help of his conch shell, and yet the conch shells which were blown by the both sides, from the Kauravas sides and from the Duryodhana side, from Pandava's side. So we can see the blowing of all these conch shells, they indicate the defeat of the Kauravas. So these are the four things that we will be seeing in first 13 verses. So now we will be going verse by verse. So verse 1.1, this is the text, the starting verse of Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samveta yuyutsava mamakah pandavaschaiva kim akurvat Sanjaya. So translation of the verse goes like this. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So here there are many points to be noted, but before starting with the explanation, a very important point that we should note, that Gita Mahatmya, it informs us about the importance of reading Bhagavad Gita with the help of a bona fide devotee in disciplic succession. See, there are many versions of Bhagavad Gita available in the market. About 600 to 700 versions of Bhagavad Gita available in the market. But these books, they have been written by people who are simply scholars, not actually devotees. Or they just want a PhD degree or some name frame from these books. So therefore, these books, they present their own opinions, not the opinion that Krishna wants to give to us in Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada sometimes used to tell very emphatically that if you want to present your own views, then just write your own book, but don't poke your nose into Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. That's how Srila Prabhupada used to tell. Because they use Bhagavad Gita as a medium to express their own thoughts, and they do not touch the points which Krishna wants to explain in Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, we can actually understand Bhagavad Gita if we read Bhagavad Gita with the help of a bona fide disciple, a bona fide devotee in any one of the four disciplic successions that we have discussed. So then we can actually understand. Otherwise, different people in the world, they read Bhagavad Gita and they come up with different meanings and different explanations. So therefore, Gita Mahatmya, it warns us that if you are reading Bhagavad Gita, it's very important that read with the help of a bona fide devotee. Otherwise, we may come up with different conclusions other than what Krishna is giving in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so now starting with the verse, here we see the Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. So what is the significance of these words Dharma Kshetre and Kurukshetre? That we should note. Why Dhritarashtra is telling Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre is very significant. So if we know Mahabharata, little bit is the background of how Bhagavad Gita was spoken in what situations. So we know that the Pandavas were very virtuous, and the sons of Dhritarashtra, they were evil-minded. And Dhritarashtra, he knew perfectly well that Pandavas are virtuous people, and if somebody is there, they are my children, my own sons. So therefore, he was very fearful that this place, Kurukshetra, which is a place of pilgrimage, it's a Dharma Kshetra. So here in the translation, we can see also, Dhritarashtra is telling, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu, they assembled in the place of pilgrimage. So Dhritarashtra is telling it's a place of pilgrimage. So he is telling it's a place of pilgrimage. That the place of pilgrimage, it's a place of pilgrimage, a negative effect on the impious people and a positive effect on the pious people. And obviously the Pandavas are the pious people, and my sons, they are on the wrong side. So therefore he was a little fearful that maybe this place, Kurukshetra, because it's a place of pilgrimage, it will support the Pandavas, and this may affect the outcome of the battle. So this was his one fear. And second fear that he had, that maybe my children, because of the influence of this Dharma Kshetra or the place of pilgrimage, maybe they will change their mind. Maybe they will understand that no, we are on the wrong side and the Pandavas are on the right side, and therefore they will give up this planning to fight, and they will just abandon the war and maybe give Pandavas the share of kingdom. So this is also quite possible, and he never wanted this. Therefore he is asking, Kim Akurvat, what did they do? After my sons and the sons of Pandu, they assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight. what did they do? So Srila Prabhupada tells that this is a very foolish question to ask. What did they do? Just like if it is said that such and such gentleman, he was served a plate of nice prasad. So after that, what did he do if someone asks? So is it not a foolish question? Obviously, he will eat. That's all. So it's a foolish question. If such a gentleman was given prasad, what did he do after that? He will eat. That's all. So similarly, here, what kind of question is that? Kim akurvat Sanjaya? What did they do after they assembled desiring to fight? What did they do? Obviously, they will fight only. But why he is asking this question? Because he was fearful that maybe the fight will not happen. Because this Dharma Kshetra, the place of pilgrimage, it will affect the consciousness of my children, and maybe they will come to their senses, they will realize that we are on the wrong side, and maybe they will surrender to the Pandavas. And he never wanted this. So this was his another fear. But he also had this hope that maybe Pandavas may abandon the fight. The Dharma Kshetra may affect the Pandavas in such a way that Pandavas will think that, okay, why to cause so much bloodshed, so much havoc, so many people will be killed. Better, let us only surrender. And for the cause of truth, for the cause of, for the benefit of everyone, okay, let us only bend down. So this was his hope also. And therefore he is asking, Kim akurvat, what did they do? And here, the third point that we understand from this verse is that Dhritarashtra's mentality is very clearly depicted. See, here he is telling, in the second last line of the verse, you see, Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva. So he is telling you Mamaka, that means my children. And Pandavas means the children of the sons of Pandu. That means he is systematically disinheriting the Pandavas, is removing them from the family inheritance. That means he is telling, he is clearly discriminating Mamaka, my children, and this Pandavaschaiva, the children of Pandu. That means he is claiming only his own children as Kurus, Kuru Vamsh. He is telling that only my children are the Kuru Vamshis, not the Pandavas, the children of Pandu. So that my mentality of Dhritarashtra is also depicted in this verse, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva. Very clearly he is disinheriting them from this family inheritance. So okay, so today we could discuss only one verse. Tomorrow we will start with the discussion of our second verse. Onwards we will go one by one and we will discuss all the verses one by one, and then we will go to the next section. So any questions somebody wants to ask?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, so this Gita Mahatma is mentioned in Padma Puran. So that obviously means that this means the timing of Padma Puran, because it is eternal only, but as per our understanding, Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,000 years ago, again by Krishna. So how does it come in Padma Puran?
No. Obviously, Gita, the knowledge of Gita is eternal, but the Puranas, they are written. Puranas are histories, no. So Puranas are written later on, and even you can write a glorification of Bhagavad Gita. So Gita Mahatma, it's a glorification. Padma Puran, Gita Mahatma, which is taken from Padma Puran, so it's a glorification. No, we can glorify Bhagavad Gita in different ways. No, in many ways. So we can also write one glorification of Bhagavad Gita. So glorification can be written at any point of time. No, anybody can write a glorification. So Gita is eternal, but the glorification can be written at any point of time. No.
Yes.
This only you were asking, no, or something else?
Yes. This only. Yes.
So
Thank
Gita is eternal. Obviously, it was lost. So Krishna again spoke it to Arjun 5,000 years ago. Obviously, Gita is eternal, but because of the passage of time, this knowledge was like kind of hidden from the society. So in that way, it was lost. So again, Krishna spoke 5,000 years ago. But the Puranas, obviously, they are varying histories, because in different ages, different Puranas will be written. But obviously, we can glorify Gita in different ways from different viewpoints, and different devotees can do it in different ways. So from many viewpoints at different times we can glorify. So what we are discussing is from the Padma Puran, which is available to us right now, and there we have taken this Gita Mahatmya. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else wants to say anything? Okay then. So tomorrow we will start with verse 1.2. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.